What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. I don't know if we're in must-win territory just yet with this Arkansas-Auburn game in Jordan-Hare Stadium on Saturday, but we're getting really close to it. Like, if you don't win this one, then the next one kind of is a must win against Texas A&M. We're going to talk to Nathan King over at Auburn Undercover, help us get a little bit more insight on the Auburn Tigers. We're going to be joined by Danny West and Connor Goodson from Hog Sports, get their perspective on the game as well. All that and more on today's episode of Hog Sports Live. Plenty of ways to watch and listen to the show. Of course, we're streaming live on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and X also. So a lot of different ways to watch the show live. And then, of course, immediately after the show will be uploaded to your favorite podcast platform. Give us a like, thumbs up, 5-star review, whatever it is on the various platform. Really appreciate that. Hog Sports is the highest rated and most rated show out of the state of Arkansas. So very proud of that distinction and want that to continue. So if you want to help boost our numbers and make sure everybody knows, give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and other platforms as well. Certainly appreciate that. All right, where to begin today? Arkansas's line has moved a lot. This one opened up at 4.5. Arkansas, the underdog, plus 4.5. It went all the way down to 3, as I guess people were putting money on the Hogs, and then floated back up to 3.5. And I was looking at Bet Saracen today, and it is at plus 4 right now. There's some interesting prop bets also. One that jumps out, Luke has total targets 7.5 and over 4.5 receptions. This is a guy that has 2 catches this year, 1 touchdown. I think the thought is that Arkansas is going to look to try to get him more involved in the passing game, but Arkansas also talking about running the ball a lot more. So if Luke hits that, 8 targets and 5 receptions, that might be an indication to me that Arkansas maybe wins the game, because this guy's a playmaker. He just hasn't gotten the ball. But a lot of interesting prop bets over there on Bet Saracen. That one jumped out to me. But Arkansas at plus 4 right now. What's the money line? Money line is for Arkansas, it's plus 125, and Auburn is minus 145. Arkansas has not beaten a team that finished with a winning record in 22 months almost. That would have been Arkansas 42, Ole Miss 27 on November 19th, 2022. They've not beaten a team with a winning record on the road in nearly 23 months. Arkansas 52, BYU 35. The last road win obviously was Florida, which we know Florida, not much to those guys. So 55 new faces on this team, though. So that's something that everybody points out to me, or they used to early in the season when I was like predicting them to lose to Oklahoma State in a close game. Oh, this team is a lot different. You lost credibility, one guy said with me. It's still Sam Pittman, and Sam Pittman's record is 2-10 in the last dozen games in 1-score games. And I feel like this is probably going to be a close game, too. We'll get into some prediction stuff as well. Arkansas and Auburn all-time. Arkansas is down in the overall series. This was before Gus Malzahn got there. This was like a dead even heat, but now it's 20, 12, and 1. Obviously, Malzahn's not there now. It's Hugh Freeze. The last time Arkansas was there, they won 41-27. That was under Brian Harsin. And then last year, Auburn just blew Arkansas's doors off. Something I brought up a lot is no matter when you look at this game, I hate when people always say, when you look at this game, when you watch the film, of course you're looking at the game or watching the film, but people always say that as a filler, and I just did it. So that's one of my pet peeves. So when you look at this game, Arkansas last year, did not get their doors blown off by anybody. For as bad as they were, losing over and over again, going 4-8, nobody smoked them. Every game that they lost leading up to this Auburn game, and I'm talking before this, but nobody smoked them before this. Leading up to this Auburn game, every game was a 1-score game if they lost, and except for the Texas A&M game. Arkansas lost by 12 against Texas A&M, which I thought Texas A&M outplayed them in that one and deserved the win, but that's not just a blowout. That's not just getting your ass kicked. They got their ass kicked against Auburn last year. They looked like a team that just didn't want to be out there. That was the first sign, okay, I've been waiting for them to let go of the rope. Impressive that they hadn't let go of the rope totally before now, but they let go of the rope against Auburn. Started thinking about, where am I going to be next year? Who's interested in me? What kind of NIL can I get? Is Sam Pittman going to be here next year? Is this coaching staff even going to be here? Am I wasting my time? You get a lot of that, and it doesn't take much. I'm not saying everybody. I'm not saying Landon Jackson thought like that. I'm not saying that Joshua Braun thought like that. But you can tell who's not here, and maybe some guys that still are here. But a lot of guys had that attitude, and it doesn't take much. There's no other sport like college football where you're relying on 50 people to be on the same page, that you're going to play on offense, defense, and special teams throughout a game. So that's what jumps out to me, how badly they got beaten that game, 48-10, against a team in Auburn that wasn't very good last year. They ended up with a losing record. They lost the next week. What was it, to New Mexico? They got their doors blown off at home to New Mexico the next week. And then Arkansas beats South Alabama. No, South Alabama. Who'd they play? I can't even remember who they played after that. But, they beat them like 44-20 or something. And then, it was the same story against Missouri. Missouri had obviously a good team and maybe had a little bit of business of beating Arkansas, but not by that margin. And they did lose KJ Jefferson, but that was a let go of the rope situation. And you have to wonder again, and I bring this up, how long before Arkansas does it this year if they keep losing? And that's the concern for me with this game, if they don't win, and then Texas A&M, because then it's Tennessee and home. And Tennessee's going to be coming off of a bye week, and then it's a bye week for Arkansas after that. Now, a lot of people, you're split if you're an Arkansas fan right now. A lot of Arkansas fans think that, things could go a certain way, and there could be a change at that bye week. A lot of people have pointed to that. A lot of people have noted there's 2 bye weeks this season. So to me, and I said this in the preseason, but Arkansas needs to win one of these games. I had them preseason picked to win at Texas or against Texas A&M in Arlington. Technically, they're the at team. I had them losing this one, 31-28. And, a lot of people, they want to know what my prediction is. And, I can look at my crystal ball of how things are going to play out. And what I really see is you, after this is over, going to ozarksgo.net and /hog and entering the promo code Biddy1 to get 1 month free. So Ozarks Go, I've used these guys for over 3 years before they were a sponsor of the show. I've been extremely pleased, and I've had, I think, at least three other internet service providers, and have had issues with every one of them. Just blinking out. I'm playing a game or something, and it goes out, and I end up losing the game, against an online opponent because it bleeped out on me, or having streaming issues. Or I remember one, for some reason the ESPN app wouldn't work, and it's because they put an outdated, crappy modem. A big company. Ozarks Go I've never had these problems. I've never one time. This is the truth. I've never one time gone upstairs to my router and unplugged it, waited 12 seconds, and plugged it back in like they tell you to do. Some places tell you to do that all the time. I've never done it once, and it's worked every time. I use multi-gigs, which is, what is it? I don't even know. My computer is maxed out at 1,000 megabits per second. So, but that's what it pulls, because I have actually started hardwiring it in. But I also wirelessly get, over 500 megabits per second, which is flying. And they also have several different tiers. They have gigabit, which is what I used before. I think that's great for most people, probably good enough for me, if I'm being honest. But I do have the assurance that all my devices, everything throughout my house and my office are going to work properly. And they do. So go check them out, ozarksgo.net/hog. They're the local people, Northwest Arkansas, parts of Oklahoma, 479-684-4900. I give them my stamp of approval. I've been satisfied, and I'm not easily satisfied. Those of you who follow me or know me personally know that I have issues. So I expect a lot out of people, and Ozarks Go delivers. All right. It wasn't as good as a segue as I had last time, but it was okay. Biddy1, enter the promo code, get a month free if you're a new subscriber, first-time subscriber. All right. Injury report. Arkansas, this is the first ever, this is historical, first ever injury report that has ever been released, official, by the University of Arkansas. Not just putting us putting tags on somebody's probable or questionable. You get fined if you don't do it properly. There are a few surprises. We know Patrick Kudus is out. Jalen Braxton being out is a bit of a surprise. I kind of thought that they were going to sit him against UAB and get him healthy, but he's got a bone bruise. He's dealing with tendonitis. We know Miguel Mitchell has been out for some time. He's out for this one. Hudson Clark is out for this one. Thought that there might be a chance that they could get him back. He's dealing with a back issue. Andreas Poska is out, the tight end from Eastern Michigan, and Shoffrey Brown is out for this one. So those players are definitely out. Desmond James is questionable. Now, Desmond James, I believe, was suspended last game. So that may be part of his suspension as questionable, like he's got certain things to fulfill, which is usually how it goes. Probable, Addison Nichols, that's good. That's good that he's listed as probable. That's a big concern, obviously, at center with his high ankle sprain on his left ankle. Jaquindon Jackson, what I noticed with Jaquindon Jackson after pretty early in the game against UAB, a little shoulder, and they're up under his pads, like rubbing some stuff. So I don't know, AC or something like that. I hope it's not that, but he still ran pretty effectively, obviously, against UAB. But Jaquindon Jackson listed as probable. Jaden Johnson listed as probable. You know, he's going to play probably. If you're probable, you're almost probably going to play. But I'm just looking at that secondary. I'm like, man, Braxton's out. Clark is out. And Clark, again, gets a lot of hate, but he's really valuable, guys. Like, he can play all the positions in the secondary. He's really the third safety and the second nickel. Kind of he's going to be in the game just as much as a starter because he can play all those spots. And they're going to rest a guy. They're going to rest your field safety and put Clark in. Rest your boundary safety, put Clark in. Rest your nickel, put Clark in. So he's basically a starter rotating around all of those spots. So very valuable guy not to have out there. Poska hasn't played a whole lot. He's in some 3 tight end sets. And then Shoffrey Brown hasn't played a whole lot, but it has just a little bit as far as guys that are out. Anton Junkaj is probable. Nico Davier is probable. But those guys are going to play. And I know that, Landon Jackson is not 100% healthy either. So a little beat up. One of the big surprises for me on defense is just how little they're rotating guys. And you got to get more out of Ian Gerfard, I think. You got to get more out of Quincy Rhodes. But it's really been, in a lot of cases, they've played those guys, but really for the most part, it's Junkaj, Davier, Jackson at end, just kind of rotating at 2 spots. And then on the interior, it's been Cam Ball, Eric Gregory, and Keevy Rose kind of rotating. They played Gerfard some, but that's kind of what it's been. And that's okay as long as you stay healthy. Landon Jackson played 65 snaps against UAB. That's too many snaps for him, in my opinion. Auburn injury report: DB Tyler Scott, tight end Brandon Frazier are both out. You guys remember Brandon Frazier, once committed to Arkansas. Doubtful DL Amaris Williams. Questionable wide receiver Cam Coleman. That's a big one. 5-star recruit in the last class at wide receiver. DB Antonio Kite. Kicker Alex McPherson. Xavier Miller on the offensive line. Probable. DB Kalen Lee and DB Champ Anthony. Champ's a good name for a defensive back. All right. So obviously we're looking at Arkansas to, try to bounce back with Taylon Green. Looking at the Auburn defense real quick, they're pretty stingy on scoring defense. They only allow 14.3 points per game. That ranks 37th nationally. They do give up some yardage, 340 yards at 71, so a little more middle of the pack as far as total defense, but obviously the scoring defense is what really matters. Strong against the run, 97.3 yards per game allowed. Pass defense, 247.7. I'm not as big on passing defense as when it comes to the total as much as, unless it like correlates in some kind of way with the rushing defense. The rushing defense I look at first because if you can run the ball, then you run the ball. Passing efficiency, 114.08, so a little bit upper, 49th nationally. So a little bit, that tells, kind of a better story what the efficiency is. Pretty decent third down team. When you look at Arkansas, obviously I'm looking at Arkansas. I hate when people say that. Yes, I'm looking at Arkansas. 46 points per game. That's 11th nationally. Total offense, 587.3 yards per game. 5th nationally. Rushing offense, 259, 11th. Passing offense, 328.3, 12th. Pass efficiency, 67th, 140.95. A little bit lower on that efficiency number. That's an important thing to take note of because we know Taylon has been a little bit inconsistent as we saw and reported all spring, good days, bad days. Had a bad day against UAB. Third down percentage is what's outstanding. 67.5%. That is number one in the entire country. Nobody in the SEC is within 7 clicks of that. The red zone offense hasn't been very good, 98th. That comes down to field goals, obviously, and turnovers and stuff. Turnovers, they got 4 turnovers, 74. Sacks allowed 6. So that's, to me, is a big battle, how Arkansas's offense performs against Auburn's defense. I think Arkansas's defense, and we'll talk to Danny a little bit more about that because he's taking a closer look at that. But I think Arkansas matches up pretty well with Auburn and Hank Brown at quarterback. And we're gonna find out a little bit more also from Nathan King here in just a second. I'm about to go to him. So need Taylor Green to bounce back. I mean, that's going to be a big one. And, can Arkansas win a close game? They've shown they can't. So, I'm not picking Arkansas to win this game. And eventually they're going to win a close game. But if I think it's going to be close, I'm picking the other team. That's just the way it is. I need to see it. So the first time that they do that, I'll have picked it wrong, as I've said before. All right. We're going to go behind enemy lines now to my man Nathan King. We've had Nathan on for several years now. He's over at Auburn Undercover. Nathan King 24/7 on Twitter. He's a good follow over there. Really good reporter, does his research, does a lot of good work over there at Auburn Undercover. At Nathan King 24/7. It's the way to follow him. Nathan, how you doing, man? Oh, I thought he answered. Nathan, how's it going?
I am good, Trey. How are y'all doing?
We're doing good over here. We're just getting ready for this one. It's a big game, obviously, for both programs. Maybe a little bit bigger for Arkansas, considering Sam Pittman's hot seat status. But, I just wanted to we'll just jump right into it, Nathan, skip all the how you doing and stuff, and just get your initial thoughts of this matchup and the importance of it for both teams.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Auburn's under a lot of pressure, too, I think, because if you lose this game, not only have you then lost your only 2 games here early in the season against power conference opponents after an offseason where you thought you were improved in a lot of areas, but if they lose this game, Trey, Freeze would drop to 1-5 at Jordan-Hare Stadium against Power 4 opponents, and that's just obviously not going to cut it. This is one that I think is going to be a little bit closer than maybe Auburn thought going back to the preseason. And the biggest reason why is the changes at quarterback. They assumed all offseason and, built toward it, right? The overhaul of the receiving core, all that stuff, that they could set up Peyton Thorne for better success in his 6th season as a college quarterback. Mm-hmm. Well, now here we are heading into the SEC opener. Peyton Thorne has been benched. Redshirt freshman Hank Brown is the quarterback. And that is the biggest question to me in this game is, can he score enough? Because Bobby Petrino and Taylor Green probably going to come in here and score some points. Can he get this offense humming enough to be able to score and hang with Arkansas in this game?
How shocked are you by that? I mean, Thorne was a team captain in preseason and all this stuff. So, you said, they banked a lot on him being the guy. How shocked were you even through it all to see him benched in favor of Hank Brown?
Yeah, it was twofold. I mean, it was surprising, but at the same time, it was. I mean, I hate to say it, but it was a little bit of same old from last season. Mm-hmm. I mean, when he went out there against Cal, and now granted, as you know, and everyone can always say it, it's not all on the quarterback, but this was the most blame I think you could put on the quarterback position maybe in the past year at Auburn. Last season, there were a lot of games that were just really, really bad all around for the offense. But don't get me wrong, the offense was clunky against Cal as well. But Thorne made a lot of bad decisions. He left a lot of yardage out on the field, probably left a couple touchdowns out there. Obviously, 4 interceptions is going to underscore that performance as a whole. But it was I guess surprising that against their first good competition of the entire year, and Cal's a pretty good defense in their own right. They've got some players there on that defensive front and in the secondary, but you just certainly did not expect to have this kind of performance right off the bat and be scrambling for answers already. I know it's frustrating for Hugh Freeze. I know it's frustrating for this program to put in all kinds of work in the offseason. That being said, who knows what we'll see on Saturday? Maybe this can be a resurgent passing game under Hank Brown. They didn't ask him to do a lot against New Mexico. It was a very bare bones game plan for him. You saw him kind of grow in comfort over the course of the game, just making easy throws, right? Obviously, he had a lot of time to throw. against a defensive line like New Mexico. He ended up throwing 4 touchdowns. Now, with all the players, Arkansas has obviously got good players on all levels of that defense. It is going to be a really, really stiff challenge for him because he has little to no experience as an SEC starting quarterback.
Yeah, I was going to ask you just what are your thoughts on how he'll handle all of that?
Yeah, I mean, they got to get the ball out of his hands quickly. Obviously, Arkansas's defensive line is, and we talked to Auburn players this week. I mean, they pointed to, the numbers of the guys up front, and they said, that's an NFL player, that's an NFL player, that's a potential NFL player. He got the ball out of his hands 2 seconds flat, according to Pro Football Focus, against New Mexico. That was compared to 3.4 seconds for Peyton Thorne the week before. I think that was pretty intentional. Again, you've got to keep things simplified for him. I wrote it in our preview piece with y'all, but you don't want him playing a lot of hero ball in this game. You would much rather see Jarquez Hunter go for 150 and Hank Brown be a little bit more of a complimentary player. Is Auburn capable of doing that? I think they are. I mean, I think they have the personnel to do that. They have the running backs to do that. They have enough good players on defense to do that. But can they get consistent enough offensive line play? Like, Jarquez Hunter's really, really good, but this O-line has been a little up and down. When he's been rolling, he has obviously been one of the better running backs, in the SEC. Obviously, the SEC's top returning rusher. And so, I'm really interested to see how Hank Brown handles it. I mean, there will be, I say all that, he's probably just got to be a game manager in this game, but there will be throws he'll have to make on 3rd and long. There will be plays he's got to make with his arm. There will be decisions he's got to make in the pocket. He's not as mobile as a guy like Thorne. So what will he do after the first sack? What will he do after the second sack? How will he respond to that? I think, it's obviously a lot on his arm, but for me, this is a big coaching game, right? I think this is a really, really big game for Auburn's offensive staff to try to scheme something up, because you don't want to make this one too difficult for a redshirt freshman quarterback. At the same time, I think he's got some nice tools to him. So we'll see how much he's able to do on Saturday.
Nathan King joining us again. You can follow him at Nathan King 24/7, beat reporter for Auburn Undercover, and does a great job over there. Had him on the show for, I guess this is probably the 3rd time we've had you on, Nathan. So Cam Coleman is, I think he's listed as probable or questionable for this one?
I think he is questionable. Okay. I would be shocked if he doesn't.
And we know Jarquez Hunter. Arkansas has faced him the last 3 years. We remember Rivaldo Fairweather. Who are some of the other guys as far as like skill guys and stuff that Brown could lean on for Auburn that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, Keandre Lambert-Smith is the best all-around receiver on this team. I would say that's showed itself to be pretty clear in the first few weeks. Honestly, our sample size of Cam Coleman hasn't been very much. He was good against Alabama A&M, where he was, not within 30 yards of a defender, because that's how FCS games go. And then I believe he was only targeted twice against Cal, because the passing game was just so horrific in that outing. And so it'll be interesting to see now, again, what they can do to kind of scheme him up and make sure he is involved, because it's helpful for a guy like Hank Brown to have a 5-star just freak Megatron of a receiver on the outside, but can they get him involved in a way that's going to help out Hank Brown? Yeah, I would go with Lambert-Smith, number 5. That's somebody Arkansas is definitely going to have to key in on. Malcolm Simmons is a really interesting X factor for me in this game. Number 11, true freshman, part of that group of receiver commits in this 2024 class for Auburn is a 4-star player. He is just lightning in a bottle. Every time he has touched the ball early this season, he has been really, really electric. That includes on special teams, had a blocked punt for a touchdown, nearly housed a kickoff return. He might be their punt returner now. They've been pretty frustrated with Keontae Scott and how he's muffed punts the last couple games. And so I would certainly keep an eye on him. They've got a stable of running backs. And Damari Alston and Jeremiah Cobb are both behind Jarquez Hunter. Those are good players, but can Auburn get consistent enough on offense? Can they stay ahead of the chains to be able to feed those guys? I would imagine that is going to be their game plan in this one.
And a lot of this, depends on what they've got going on up front and in terms of protection and blocking. It's kind of a mixed bag with this offensive line. What are your thoughts on how they match up with what you called, several guys that have ability at the next level on Arkansas's defensive line?
Yeah, they're finally, I think, in a position where this is the starting 5 they want to go with. It's been injuries. It's been guys playing poorly. Percy Lewis is a Mississippi State transfer. He was basically starting left tackle all offseason, kind of lost the job to a redshirt freshman. Then the redshirt freshman went out, didn't play too well, so now they're back at Percy Lewis, who's been playing better. Dylan Wade is a guy that's bounced around guard and right tackle. Now I think he's going to settle at left guard. They're good, not great. I think, up front. That is another position group they're obviously looking to improve over the course of the next few years. On the recruiting trail, they have had some inconsistent moments in terms of run blocking this season. I don't think pass blocking has been as big of an issue as people have made it out to be. When you look at the numbers and you just kind of look at the film, particularly in the Cal game, Peyton Thorne didn't really do them a lot of favors. Like, he is a mobile guy, but just sort of the awareness, exiting the pocket way too early when he could have stepped in and made a throw or two. I think Hank Brown does a little bit better of a job of that, of going through his progressions, understanding pressure's coming, kind of standing in there. He's a taller quarterback, bigger arms, so that I think there's some confidence that kind of comes with that. They're going to need to be on their game in this one. Obviously, you mentioned Arkansas, not only their defensive line, but Travis Williams, I would imagine, he's licking his chops a little bit. I think not only because of the way Auburn has played on offense against a good opponent this season, but he's a guy who likes to blitz. He likes to throw exotic things at a quarterback, and it's a redshirt freshman making his first ever SEC start. So Auburn has to take some of that pressure off of him. And you're exactly right. The offensive line is going to carry a lot of weight in that regard.
I think one of the more interesting matchups is more on the sideline, but Bobby Petrino and DJ Durkin, two guys who, these guys went at each other all fall camp and all spring last year at Texas A&M. What are your thoughts on that matchup? And Durkin I think it's also interesting to point out, Petrino at Texas A&M, we all know he was very handcuffed, running a lot of what Jimbo Fisher wanted them to do. And then Durkin, conversely, is running a lot of different looks on defense. He's doing more odd front and a little more blitzing than he did at Texas A&M. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah, it's been interesting to see what Durkin has been trying to do with this defensive front early in the year. They are a group that is really deep, but they don't really have a superstar. And so they are trying to offset that by playing a bunch of guys, a lot of snaps, sort of, not accepting any sort of complacency. If you're going to play only a few snaps a game relative to maybe some other programs, you better play with your hair on fire. And so, they've tried to mix it up in that sense with some exotic blitzes. It has been a little bit more odd front for him this season. Talking to Hugh Freeze this week, he said that DJ Durkin told him Bobby Petrino's offense doesn't look that different from what he saw at Texas A&M last year. I'm not entirely sure, how that's going to play out in this game. Who necessarily has the advantage between those two guys? It definitely is going to be an interesting chess match to follow. But Durkin's defense has been fine. I would definitely not say it has been, detrimental to the team on any level. Their secondary play is probably what has been the most disappointing so far. I mentioned Keontae Scott. He made the move from nickel to corner. There's really no other way to put it. He's been picked on. He has not been very good out there. Cal went 5 of 5 passing the ball when looking in his direction. Wasn't very good last week. And so they've had to shuffle things around a little bit. But to their credit, and I mentioned in our Q&A, but Devin Dampier is a really exciting mobile quarterback for New Mexico. Resembles a lot of what Taylor Green likes to do. And so they struggled to contain him. I will say they tightened down in the second half pretty nicely. So can they make those adjustments early on in this game, early enough? Because Arkansas went on the road and scored a bunch of points early against Oklahoma State. I think that put, the Cowboys in a position they had to come back in that game. Auburn certainly doesn't want to be in that position where, Taylor Green's put up 21, 28 points at halftime.
All right, we'll get you out with this. In our exchange earlier, you had Arkansas winning Auburn winning a 1-point game. Sounds like you've been following along with Arkansas's trends lately, but what about Auburn makes you think that they can pull out a 1-point win in this one? You got them 28-27.
Again, I really went back and forth with this one.
Me too.
I think we're going to learn a lot. If we had already seen Hank Brown in a performance against an SEC team, or just a good team, period, and he had been so-so, I probably would go with Arkansas in this game, because for me, it's just how much can the Tigers score to keep up. Now, that's Arkansas hasn't been perfect. They were up and down offensively, particularly against UAB. Taylor Green, left a lot to be desired in that game. But I just think at home, Auburn usually gets up for this game. Historically, really the only one that recently that hasn't gone their way, of course, was Brian Harson's last game here on the Plains. And as soon as KJ Jefferson started getting downhill in that game, it was over a quarter and a half in. They just completely let it down. let Arkansas run all over them. And so I will say the reason I've got it so close and the reason that I'm so back and forth here, I think Arkansas really is going to play with an edge in this game. I mean, I read the interviews from Arkansas players this week. They're not feeling so great after last year. That taste that was left in their mouth, losing by 38 points at home, that obviously has stuck with them. But I think Auburn's got enough playmakers on offense. I think, again, this is a big game for the coaching staff to put these guys in position to succeed. Guys like Cam Coleman and Lambert Smith, and I think they'll lean on Jarquez Hunter. I think they've got enough players to squeak out a close win. But, I think really, I hate to oversimplify it. It might come down to who wins the turnover battle. I've got Auburn executing just enough to get a close win at home.
Great stuff, Nathan. Man, I really appreciate you hopping on and the conversations we've had over the last few years.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it. Y'all be safe coming down.
Okay. Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks, sir.
All right. I will not be coming down, as you guys know. That press box has got me out. Yeah, Arkansas losing, as he said, by 38 points. Kind of sounds like what I do to Connor Goodson when we play EA Sports college football, just utter domination. Those of you who don't follow Connor, you can follow him at Connor Goodson on X. Does a great job and really going to be valuable. As you see, I've got him listed as a hoops analyst, but he does everything. He does basketball, football, does a little bit of everything for us. Connor, how you doing, man?
What's up, Trey? I'm good. Another week living in paradise, getting ready to hopefully watch Arkansas pick up a road win this weekend after a very disappointing home performance last week.
Yeah. Is there anything about what you've seen so far that makes you think that they're going to get a road win?
They almost got a road win against Oklahoma State. I mean,
a lot of almost.
That's a very big almost. I mean, this team, I really don't know what to expect. I mean, I'm kind of going off of they have played better under Sam Pittman on the road than they have played at home. And so, I mean, maybe that trend continues. That's kind of my feeling, that trend continues. I feel like maybe they're a little.
We lost you, Connor.
Petrino was probably very
we lost your last, 5 seconds, whatever you said, last 5 seconds.
Well, I know the players are probably a little embarrassed after their performance at UAB, and I know Bobby Petrino's probably really embarrassed as well from, Trent Dilfer and all of them kind of really breaking apart his game plan and kind of his tendencies. So I'm sure that there's going to be a little extra motivation there. It's also the first SEC game. So that's why I kind of tend to believe they'll play better than what we saw last week. But man, I mean, it's still early in the season. You still really don't know what you're going to get with this Arkansas team.
We always talk about the deal, the 5 keys to victory. We always include penalties, turnovers, special teams, and injuries. And they always seem to play a huge role, especially when you're talking about SEC. But we always do five keys to victory. And for this one, you have put together a complete game, and which I don't know that we've seen. I can't remember the last. Maybe even the Ole Miss game in 2022. I felt like Ole Miss, Arkansas jumped out such a big lead. They didn't just finish it the way you would want to see them finish that game. So it's been a while since Arkansas has put together 4 quarters.
Yeah, and that's why I say that this is probably one of the bigger keys of this game. We haven't seen them do it, and it's a big reason why they're like 1-7 or 1-8 in their last 1 possession games under Sam Pittman is because they haven't played 4 full quarters of mistake-free, good, smart football. Mm-hmm. And if they're going to win this weekend, if they're going to start to change that trend of losing in close games, I mean, they've got to put together 4 quarters of really good football. And I put it in the 5 burning questions. Can they stay out of their own way? That kind of goes hand in hand with playing a complete game. They got to play for all 4 quarters, and they can't really shoot themselves in the foot because, as we've seen, they can't afford to do that and also pick up a win.
I was on the way home from that UAB game, and I was listening just turn the radio on, and there was a post-game show, and the guy was like, if you listen to all the local media, they tell you how great Taylon Green is, how he can do no wrong and all this stuff. And I'm like, all spring and all fall camp, we talked about his problems with inconsistencies, and that we saw there were days where he was great, and there were days where you were like, where is he throwing this ball? And I think that's kind of what we saw, like from the Oklahoma State game. Generally, aside from a couple of errors, very good. and you take that Taylor Green most days. And then what we saw against UAB was a guy that didn't seem to have confidence in where he was throwing the ball, or that his receivers would catch it. It was late on a lot of stuff. So that begs the question, which Taylor Green shows up? Is there any way we can predict that?
I mean, I really don't think so. I would have predicted last week that, a lesser opponent, the sting of Oklahoma State coming up short in that game, we would have seen a much more focused and polished Taylor Green. But yeah, to your point, we were saying this during spring practices. One day he looks like Heisman candidate, best player on the field by far. And the next day it looks like a guy who hasn't played high level FBS football before. I mean, we even were talking about it up there in the press box about that one day in spring practice where he just completely missed Tyrone Broden on a fade route and almost threw the ball completely out of the practice field into the road. And it was and that was one of his worst days of spring practice. We saw some of that even in fall, but to be fair, he did look a little bit more consistent overall.
He did. We
didn't see a lot of team stuff in fall, obviously, which plays a role into, we didn't get a full sample size. But, it's almost impossible to predict what we're going to see from Taylor Green. I don't think that there's really any way he could start worse than how he did against UAB. That -3 passer rating, 1 of 8 for 9 yards and an interception. That was an awful start. But, listening to Pittman, he said that Taylor Green's mindset was really great on the sidelines. We saw him talking to Bobby, and, they're in the iPads, and it looked like that they were, staying focused on the task at hand, and he wasn't letting that awful start really get to him. So, I do like the kid's more mental fortitude. I like his ability to kind of have a short memory. But man, he's just going to have to play a lot better. If they get that performance they got this Saturday, I mean, you're looking at maybe another 48-10 game.
Yeah, you can't play the way they played against almost any other team from the state of Alabama like that. But, his legs are always going to be there as long as he stays healthy, and that's a very dangerous aspect that he brings to the table. And we're talking about him as a passer, man. It wasn't just like us, like we're geniuses or something. It was all the media people.
No.
We were all having these conversations like, what is going on today? Why is he throwing the ball so poorly? I also think, and something I noticed very early, he throws a better ball to the left. And I would like to see what the breakdown is on that. But he throws better when he's throwing to his left than he does to his right, which is maybe on the run he could throw better to his right. But if he's just like in the pocket, like throwing a deep ball, for whatever reason, it seems to go better on the left side of the field. How concerned are you about Arkansas secondary depth? Obviously, Jalen Braxton being out is a big one, and Hudson Clark. So there's some concern there, I think.
Yeah. To your last point about Green, real quick, they've got to get something. They've got to get him into like some things that he's really comfortable throwing to build his confidence up early. I think that's going to be the key to get his confidence early, and then get him some passing concepts he's really comfortable with. But secondary depth. Moving on to the other side of the ball is a huge concern. We talked about it all throughout the offseason and even in the fall camp. There was one position group that really couldn't afford a rash of injuries. It was the secondary. I mean, and now you've got Braxton out, Clark out. Miguel Mitchell has also not played yet. He's going to be out again. And then Jaden Johnson obviously is, I believe he's listed as probable. But yeah, you're going to be relying on guys like Tevis Metcalf. You're probably going to have to rely on like a Selman Bridges to come in and play. And those are guys that don't really have a lot of experience playing against SEC caliber teams. So you're really, you've already struggled. We saw the secondary really struggle last week against UAB defending the short stuff. Nico Slaughter was getting torched all game. I think that having Larry Worth, I know Pittman said that they have a plan for him, possibly at nickel. I think you've said it earlier, but I agree with you.
That concerns me a little, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's better fits at safety than nickel, but it's still – yeah, there's a lot of concern there. And then I think that the one thing that they have going for him is that it's a redshirt freshman quarterback in Hank Brown, who, I mean, it's a young guy that doesn't have a lot of experience.
Not
so it's not like
exceedingly mobile either. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got some things going in your favor, but the depth there is a big question mark, and how well those guys that are having to step up, how well they can play is going to be the difference in the ball game.
You know who Jaquinon's starting to remind me more of as I watch him is like senior year version of Cedric Cobbs. I don't know if you remember that too much,
Yep.
Connor, but Cedric did a really good job when he got to be a senior versus when he was younger in his career when he was trying to hit a home run every single play. But he did a good job of, staying behind his pads, and you see that with Jaquinon. He stays behind his pads well. He's got really good balance like Cobbs had, and he's focused on, getting those first 4 yards and then worried about getting the rest. But make sure those first 4 yards are taken care of, and then if you can get more after that. You think Arkansas can get it done on the ground in this one? They've certainly been good so far.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's going to be be really critical to taking some pressure off of Taylor Green. If they can move the ball with the ground game and keep Jaquinton Jackson going, I think that's going to really open the offense up a lot. And to Auburn's credit, they have one of the better defenses so far in the season. I think they're ranked 32nd in all of FBS. They're allowing under 100 rush yards a game. They also haven't really played a rushing attack. It's going to be up to Arkansas's standards. So I think that Arkansas can have a lot of success. And to your point, I think Cedric Cobbs is a really good comparison. I think Jaquinton Jackson's physicality, maybe it's because he's wearing 22, but just his getting down and wanting to take hits. That physicality kind of reminds me of Peyton Hillis a little bit, just where he's really not looking to make people miss as much. He's wanting to run through guys like a Mack truck almost. And so there's some times where it's kind of reminded me of seeing, old Peyton Hillis in that 22 barreling over, smaller defenders in the secondary. But yeah, really impressed with him. He's just got to stay healthy, man, because they don't really have a back that can do what he can do.
Well,
they have a lot of versatility, but
yeah, he's got to stop looking for so much contact. I mean, not only did he look for contact on that run against Oklahoma State, but he almost fumbled the ball. He did fumble it, but his knee was down. But yeah, gotta not take that hit, and gotta not have fumbles. And that brings us to our next point is like staying out of your own way, having careless turnovers and things like that. The special teams issues that Arkansas had with fumbling the ball, staying out of their own way, as you put it, and not just the players on the field, but Sam Pittman too, because I heard him on his radio show on Sam Pittman Live Wednesday. He said, scoring in the red zone is going to be really important. Well, he's also got to make the right decisions when they're in the red zone. It feels like he's probably operating at a 70% clip or something on making the wrong choice, whether to kick or go for it. I'll never understand. It's 4th and 5 and you got a chance to take the lead and you don't kick it. I can understand if it's 4th and 1, but it's 4th and 5. I just don't get that. And he's got to do a better job of making decisions. So it's also, he's got to stay out of his own way.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is him just overthinking the situation. And like you said last week, I bet if you went back, it would take way more time than you or I have. But if you went back to Pittman Sr. and you went through every decision in that situation where he had to choose between punt or take the points, I would, I'm with you. I think that he's made it more times than not. He's made the wrong decision in those situations. So, yeah, they've got to stay out of their own way on the field and on the sidelines as well. Pittman's got to be much better making decisions, knowing when to use a timeout, when you can burn a timeout, when's a good situation. Sometimes you might want to just take a penalty instead of, in a close game and save the timeout. As backwards as that is, we saw that against LSU, and I think we also saw it against Ole Miss, burning some timeouts early, and then it turns out you need them to stop LSU and get them off the field. You don't have them, and they end up running out the clock. So just little management things like that. The margin for error in SEC play, especially on the road, is so razor thin. The difference in these ball games is, it's literally inches, and one play can completely keep you from walking out of there as a victor. And I think that Arkansas has been their own worst enemy far too often in these situations. And until they can prove to me that they will get out of their own way, you're almost kind of expecting it at this point.
Yeah. It's a game of inches. It's a game of seconds. No question about it. So much of it comes down to that. All right, real quick, we got to get you out of here because we're running long, but how do you see it playing out? Score prediction.
I have it playing out, I think, probably like 31-28 Auburn. I'm in the same boat with you, and I've kind of said this also, like going back to the Oklahoma State game. It's like, I know in the preseason predictions, I kind of picked them to go into Auburn and win just because I felt like this was their best situation. I wasn't really a believer in Auburn, and I'm still not. But until this Arkansas team can win a close game and beat an SEC team on the road again, I can't bring myself to pick them. I've got to see it. So 31-28 Auburn is what I'm going with, and hopefully I'm wrong.
Well, that's my score prediction. You can't use mine.
Okay, fine. I mean,
no, you're good. You're good. You
I'll go like 35-32 or so. Give me 38-35.
Last week you went 50-10.
Yeah.
Like, where'd you come up with that number?
I've been playing too much NCAA 25 where, you're getting safeties against the CPU and all that. And you're getting these weird wonky scores. And I was just like, 50-10. Yeah. And I was looking at the averages. So I was like, I could see them getting 50, but
well, good luck against Nebraska in your game today.
Appreciate it. I'm going to need it. We need those Tar Heels to get back competitive again in the league.
Yeah. All right, brother. Talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, Sherry. Bye.
All right, everybody. That's Connor Goodson. Again, follow him at Connor Goodson on X. Does a great job for us. Connor and I are in a HawgSports league, a 12-person league. Like, everybody's a member at HawgSports. And we played last year. I jumped out to him not last year. It was I don't know how long ago it was, but anyway, we played last season, and I jumped out and he closed it down. I think I won by like 3 points, so it was a battle. But Arkansas right now is undefeated. We just beat the Ole Miss guy who beat us last year and streamed it on Twitch, so I got some vengeance for that. He's a really good player too, so I was happy to win that one. Virginia Tech guy and TCU guys really good. We all pick like teams that are, nobody cares. I know we all pick teams that are like 85 or below overall, so we could build them up. And I ended up with Arkansas. So, all right, we're going to Danny West. Danny doesn't mess around with video games. He just likes to sit in the deer stand. You got to pick something. Like, this is really cutting into my golf game, this college football stuff. So you only get time for one hobby when you're 46 years old. Danny, how's it going, man?
What's up, man? It's going pretty good.
Not much. We'll just jump right into it, man. What's your thoughts on this one coming up, and just based on your knowledge of the Arkansas program, this series, how do you think Arkansas matches up with these guys?
Sure. Not a ton more to add than those guys. I thought they did a really good job. But, man, I think, just like I said Monday, I think Arkansas can 100% win this game, and probably should be expected to, if we're being honest. I watched the Auburn game against New Mexico again, and they went into halftime up 4. Trey really didn't put them to bed until late third quarter. If you think about it, it's a team that lost to California. I don't think their talent gap really is what we've seen, at Auburn and for so many years, really, but especially up front. Defensively, it just doesn't seem like they've got the same difference makers there, but. You think about the quarterback situation, as we talked about all week now. No doubt the dude can throw it. He's Freeze's guy. It makes sense for him, and chances are he's probably going to be really good in time. Especially they keep throwing freaks around him 5-star after 5-star. But first SEC start, you got all those freaks. They're still only freshmen. Most of them.
Yeah.
You better get them now. You kind of need to get them now, and. It wouldn't shock me at all if Arkansas wins it, but just based on some of the injuries in the secondary, probably the 2 guys that I would trust the most in the secondary going to be out. You've talked a little bit about Addison Nichols, and at least some concern there. That's a major concern if there's any concern at all. So, and then Hugh Freeze, buddy, we've seen the last 2 years. Hugh Freeze came into Fayetteville and put on a clinic against Arkansas. Frankly, I mean. He did it with Liberty 2 years ago, and then obviously last year, whatever that was, 48-10. It's just ugly. But you add all that up, I think Arkansas should have a chance to win it late. And just based on recent history, I can't pick them to do it, man. I think it'll be a close game, and probably one that they break your heart somehow.
Yeah. So we're all picking Auburn. What's your score?
Man, I think I was leaning toward mid-20s, but I think this one too will probably go into the 30s. I could see this one being a case where Arkansas just, we've seen it time and time again. Hugh Freeze is one of the best in the game at it. He'll pick a weakness, and we've seen a couple on Arkansas's defense. He'll pick it, and it seems like he snaps the ball 4 times before you ever get it corrected, and it seems to me like a game that could get out of control a little bit, just teams getting sloppy tackling in space, that type of thing with Arkansas. We've seen that in the past, and I'm not sold on Auburn's defense being able to slow down this Arkansas running game. I know what the stats say, but there's a little bit of fool's gold in there too.
It's all fool's gold at this point. Yeah.
Just based on who they've played and how they've looked, and it's hard to just go on the numbers, man. That's why I try to watch as many games as I can early in the year.
Well, we all think we know what who's who and what's what. Yep. We don't know. We don't know what there's Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Missouri are all ranked in the top 7.
How good is that Tennessee-Oklahoma game going to be?
It's going to be good.
Yeah.
But
Tennessee's
at the same time,
a lot
Danny,
better than I thought. A lot better.
Aside from these teams playing each other, some of these teams are going to lose to other teams. We all look at it and say, oh, they're not going to lose that. There's no way. But there's a way. It happens in college football all the time. So teams will lose to teams not ranked. Teams that are ranked in the top 7 at some point are going to drop a game they're not supposed to. It'll happen, and Arkansas might need that to happen too, because this looks very, very much like it's not maybe a must win, but if it's not a must win and they lose, then next week is a must win.
Yeah, and it just keeps
must
like
double must.
It's
Danny.
A double must.
It's a double must win.
It's the rare double must win next week. That's what you got. But hey, I'm with you, man. I think you can make a case that it is a must win, just because. I mean, I get it. People want us to get on here and say, well, Arkansas's got a chance in every game, and mathematically speaking, yeah, you're right. But I think you kind of lean the same way I do, where you look at some of these remaining games. Tennessee doesn't feel very winnable. Ole Miss doesn't feel winnable. Texas doesn't feel attainable at all, So really, you kind of shorten your season when you think like that. You go, well, really, there's only 4 or 5 games left, So I'm with you, man. It does feel like a must win, and we'll find out at 2:30. But man, I heard you say you're not going down there. I can't say that I blame you. It just seems like something bad's going to happen every time you go.
I've been down there when they've won. I've been down there. Yeah, I went down there and obviously they won this last time that they were there, but I didn't go because
you were there in 2012. John L.
I was there in 2012, which was so unexpected that they won that game.
24-7 game. Yeah.
Yep. Kyle Frazier at quarterback. I did not go last time because the last time I've been is the first time I went to that new press box. And the reason, for those who don't know, if you watch the show, but it's the literal worst seat in that stadium. And I don't expect to have the best seat in the stadium. That's not what I'm saying. But for me to perfect, to do my job professionally, I need a decent spot. I don't need to be sitting behind the Jumbotron. I don't need to be in the end zone, like where, it takes the depth out, and I can't look at the Jumbotron at the same time. It's very frustrating. And it's a shame that Auburn has done that, but
it's a real shame.
It is. Like, again, they used to have one of the best press boxes in the SEC. It was right above the lower deck. It was, right in the middle of the field. I don't expect to have that seat. It's great. Arkansas gives us a great seat, but I don't always expect to have that seat. But don't put me in the end zone behind the big screen at the very top. Like, don't do that. Like, and I just, it's hard enough to get to that place in the first place.
Did you get in a wreck last year?
No, that was Georgia. Me and Tom Murphy both got in wrecks in our rental car, and mine was just some kid. Like, I was going to Georgia. I wanted to get there early because I hadn't been to Athens in a while, and I wanted to look around, see what's new around the campus, walk around, see the tailgating atmosphere, the vibe, and everything. So I left early, and this dumbass kid ran into me in the rental car. So that's a whole ordeal with the rental car and, filing police report and all that stuff. And it took forever. I barely made it in time because I ran into a super amount of traffic at that point. And then Arkansas got kicked out of them.
Yeah.
What was it? 30 something to nothing. I mean, Georgia blew their doors off.
Yeah, I think it was 30-0.
So pissed. Pissed, Danny, with that game. But the Auburn game is just difficult because, and Georgia too, because you fly into Atlanta and then you got to drive to Athens. But Auburn, you got to fly into Atlanta, and then it's a 2-hour trip to Auburn, and then you got to do the whole thing again, and you got to go through Atlanta and stuff. There's not a good way to get to a lot of these SEC towns, and Auburn's one of them. And then to make all that trip and have such a terrible seat, I might go back, Danny, if I sit in the stands, because I really do love that stadium. Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Oh, man.
A beautiful venue.
I was there in 2006 when McFadden and Jones went wild and Arkansas won that game. Mm-hmm. Man, it's incredible. I mean, I know people don't want to hear us talk about Auburn, but if you ever get a chance to go down there, it's really a place to watch a game. By the way, it's 37-0 3 years ago at Georgia.
Yeah. It's a butt kicking. All right, Danny, anything else to add? You want to pop in on any recruiting stuff? Obviously, Walker White is an interesting recruit. I know the Whites. My wife was like best friends with one of the Reese girls, which, John Reese was former Razorback. John Aaron Reese is former Razorback. So there's connections there. And then, married to the Whites. So I know the Whites kind of. I know the Reese is better, but I know that they're all Razorback people. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic with having Walker over there.
Yeah, good kid though, man. Great family. Anybody that knows the family, I mean, they're all like that. They're all just super nice. And obviously you pull for Walker. There's a few kids down there. Obviously TJ Lindsey being from Bryant. He spent his last year at IMG Academy in Florida, but went on to Auburn. And DJ Barber was a linebacker that made an official in last year's class at Arkansas. And at one point I felt like Arkansas might have a pretty good, chance there, but obviously he ended up sticking close to home. He's from Alabama. And there was another one, Damari Austin, the backup running back there, one of the cooler kids I've ever covered, to be honest with you. I mean, this is a guy that maybe 3-4 years ago, I got off the phone with him one night, did a great interview, and really it wasn't even an interview. We were just kind of talking, and got to know each other. 10 minutes later, he texted me and said, "Hey, I don't really mess with reporters, but you can call me anytime. And 24/7's always got an interview with us." So I always appreciated that. And, I kind of pulled for Damari Austin too. So maybe keep that in mind when you're booing him. He's actually a pretty good kid.
All right, Danny. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for hopping on.
You got it, man.
All right, everybody. Follow Danny at Danny West 24/7 on X. Does a great job over there. And subscribe to Ozarks Go if you haven't subscribed. Is that a subscription deal? Get the service if you haven't. If you're in Northwest Arkansas, they are a local company. When you call them at 479-684-4900, you're going to reach somebody from around here who knows what you're talking about. Are you available north of the tunnel? Yes, we're available north of the tunnel. They know what the tunnel is. You're not getting shipped off to some call center. They do a great job. As I always say, it always works. What's better than that? It works. They're not going to jack your rate up next year. You're going to pay the same next year as you pay this year. Use the promo code BIDDY1 if you go to ozarksgo.net/HAWG, HAWG, and you can get a month free. All right, I want to thank Nathan King for hopping on, Connor Goodson, Danny West. Appreciate all of you people watching. You fine folks at home and at work. I know you're at work watching. I know you're slacking off, but we really appreciate you guys. And also been told that I do need to mention that Virginia Tech won the national championship. Virginia Tech guy in our Dynasty League. He's really good, and I play him next week. So got to mention that, of course, if I mentioned the Dynasty. So shout out to the HawgSports Dynasty on EA Sports College Football. All right, everybody. That's it. That's the show. Appreciate you joining me. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com. We'll catch you next time.